Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. And today, I just wanted to dive back into this space of photography since I kind of got into this a little bit before, just as a hobby. For you guys who might be interested in a hobby, I wanted to kind of share some points with you guys that I think would be a benefit as far as if you guys were actually interested in joining such a hobby. As I mentioned before on the channel and on the previous video I did about photography stuff, that it's a hobby of mine, and I think you guys should definitely find yourselves a hobby, whatever that hobby is. But for you guys who might be interested or don't really know what hobby you want to get into, and the idea of photography might be interesting to you, I just want to throw a few things out there. So I recently just purchased this. This is a Canon 5D Mark II, and I bought it used on eBay. I actually got it for a really good price for being in such good condition. It literally is like mint condition. No really dings on it and this and that. It really is like mint condition. And I wanted to get into the fact that for those who might be trying to get into photography and don't really realize, you might see a bunch of all these new cameras out, and you know, a lot of mirrorless cameras. As far as photography goes, we've left the era of digital SLRs, which stands for single lens reflex camera. But the digital aspect of it was when it went digital, whereas it used to be film. So these essentially were the same how film cameras were, except they used film. Then when they converted to digital, it was the same concept. There's a mirror inside the body, and that mirror reflects what you're seeing through the lens. So when you look through the viewfinder, you're seeing what's actually in front of you based on just the reflection of light crossing through. Mirrorless now does everything in a way where what you're seeing in front of you when you look through the eyepiece is called the EVF, electronic viewfinder, and as opposed to OVF, which is optical viewfinder, you are seeing essentially a screen in the viewfinder is what you're looking at when you're looking at it through there. And, you know, there is no wrong or right way or anything of that sort as far as you getting into photography. But the thing I wanted to point out was that the cameras nowadays, first off, it kind of started with this camera. It wasn't the first, but this is the first one to do full frame sensor video. These body styles, digital SLRs, and now the mirrorless, which are essentially almost the same thing, very similar, slightly different other than what I just told you was pretty much different. So the other ones don't use a mirror in them, and these ones do. And so the other one replaces, mirrorless replaces you viewing things through the mirror and seeing through the lens like I just showed you, versus you seeing through a monitor, and the viewfinder is a monitor as well. Similar to your phone, when you look through your phone, the back of the screen of your phone, and you have your camera on, you're not seeing real time. It feels that way, but what you're seeing is a digital rendition of what's in front of you, displayed on a screen. And so besides for that, digital SLRs and mirrorless cameras are pretty much the same thing. But the point I was going to get at was that this camera came out in 2008. And from that point on, there became this kind of rat race of doing better video in SLRs and SLR style type of cameras, mirrorless. And so it got to a point where, with video becoming the prime aspect of things along with the photography took a back seat and the video took a front seat. And I say that to say, if you guys were looking to get into photography for just photography, these older cameras, more than do anything you need them to do, they actually feel better in the hand most of the time. They have that more traditional feel with a very like traditional snap kind of sound when you take a photo. Just to give you a sense of that. And you can hear that sound. And it's a very satisfying sound. So it's just really, people who are into photography are starting to come back around to digital SLRs now, because they realize something that I realized for a while, and I never went to mirrorless, was that that feel, that robust feel of a camera, you having control of it, you taking your photos, it having certain limitations. It's not all where there's all these electronics taking over and doing everything for you. You really have to learn photography. Is just a more natural feeling way to get into photography, or to be in photography if you were in it. And like I said, now you can get a lot of these older cameras, and if you get them in good condition, in mint condition like this, you get some of these cameras that give you fantastic photos. I honestly would say if you're looking to get into photography, I would say that this is probably the best camera I would recommend for someone getting into it. And the reason why I say that is because full frame is always better for low light, and it's the standard in terms of when you look at a lens, and this says 50 millimeters on it. At a full frame, your 50 millimeters equals 50 millimeter range. If you're using a crop body sensor, which there's nothing wrong with that, and those also take great photos, the sensor is a little smaller. And if you're using a 50 millimeter lens, it's gonna equate to like 75 millimeters, or in Canon's crop, because Canon crops differently. Instead of 1.5 to do 1.6, it would be like an 80 millimeter lens. And so I say that to say that back in the days, during the time when this camera came out in 2008, a lot of people would have crop sensors. APS-C is what they're called. Like I said, nothing wrong with that. And they're great, and they take great photos, just as good as you can kind of get with this thing. But back then, full frame cost a lot more. I think this camera cost something over $3,000, maybe $3,200 when it first came out. And then you would probably buy an APS-C sensor camera. In Canon's case, which I'm more familiar with, like a Rebel, would be like maybe $500, $600, maybe $700 with a lens or something like that. Now you're getting this camera, which still takes great images because it doesn't degrade in its quality over time. And it's still taking just as good photos as it did then. So I say this to say that if you wanted to now get into a full frame, and like I said, some people may not know the differences between these things as well. So with that, if you don't know that much about photography, I would say aim for a full frame camera if you could, to start off with, now that they're so much cheaper. But being that we've left the era of digital SLRs, we're in this time frame now where back in the rat race for the digital SLRs, they got expensive. People wanted this and that, all these kind of things. Now that we left that phase, we're in a sweet spot right now where you can get these amazing cameras on the used market, still in good condition, and they work great. If you get them where there's no, like I said, like damage, some of them have really bad damage on the outside. I would recommend not getting that, because I think that could detract from your first experience in terms of feeling pleased with the gear that you get. And it doesn't really cost that much extra to get a nice clean version of something like this right here. I had showed you guys before a another camera that I purchased. Matter of fact, I'm gonna bring that one into play right now, just for because I had it in when I did my whole camera video, but I didn't really speak on it as much. So I'm gonna bring that into play. It's a Canon 40D. Okay, so, and this I also got was mint condition also. I showed it on the channel that other time. It's getting a little dusty. And this was mint condition also, actually. That's a lens I use for it. It's also a 50 millimeter lens. It's an older version, and while this one is a slightly newer version over here. But so this is considered a crop body camera. For Canon, APS-C 1.6 crop, meaning that whatever the lens is, if you have like a 50 millimeter lens, you're gonna multiply that by 1.6, which I think roughly comes out to 80 millimeters on this, which is a little more closer up. 50 millimeters is kind of the focal point that you see with your own eye if it's on a full frame. And obviously if you're using something wider, like say 28 millimeters wider. But the point I wanted to get at is this. So if you wanted to get in photography, you really want to get into photography, and you have hardly any money, something like this, a 40D is a great body, or something like this. I picked this one up. Actually, it was a really good deal. I'm not gonna lie, it was a really good deal on eBay. I just happened to score one that was really clean. I knew I was looking for. I was looking at the images, and this one cost me 60 after taxes and everything, like $63. The only problem is the person didn't include a charger. I kind of got a little bothered with that. I had to buy my own separate charger, but the charger costs about $8, $7, so it's not too bad. It came with a battery though, at least, just didn't have a charger. This right here cost me, after tax and everything all in, shipping and all that, off eBay as well, mint condition, $231, which is a super steal. So even though that is relatively affordable price for anyone who's like, say, a grown-up, they got a job, this and that, I would say go for this is a better option if you can, if you're just getting started in photography. If you are like, say, younger, you're a teenager and you want to get into something, but you know, you can't really, you don't have the money for that, I would say go for something like this. Is not bad either. This 40D, if you can find a 50D, but to be honest with you, if a 50D is going for like 70, like maybe like $100, I would choose this over the 50D. It depends. You could go with the 50D, $100, not too bad, but not too much more than that, because I think around that price range too, you can get a 7D for like maybe $100. I would go for the 7D, but once you start going above that range, I would just opt for something like this. So pick your poison, but I got this for, like I said, 60 after tax and everything, was $60 in shipping. My point I wanted to get at is this. I think this is the best camera that you could get for the price right now. From what I've seen on the prices between this, there's the 6D Mark I, a couple of different cameras and this and that. If you're just getting photography, just to keep it simple, the 5D Mark II, don't do it for the video. This was the first camera to have video, but you're not focusing on that. I'm speaking just on photography alone. This right here, I think is probably the best camera someone could get right now for the money. And there's so many affordable lenses out. You can get this type of lens brand new, 50 millimeter, and that would be like $100 to $125 brand new. And that's really all you need. You can walk around with just that, but there's a whole list of lenses out there right now. And like I said, this is just a sweet point because we're just coming from the point where even though there are a couple of new digital SLRs that are they're still available. They're newer. They're not being made, but they're still available. You go on Amazon, you go on certain websites, B&H, you can buy like the 5D Mark IV, the 6D Mark II, which I own that camera. You could buy some of these brand new still because there's still new inventory left, but it's done, it's dead. And so this is that era where between coming over to mirrorless, which is now everything's been pushing mirrorless for maybe the last, I would say it's almost been 10 years when mirrorless started kind of kicking in. And the last 5 years, they've been the prominent thing completely. You could really purchase some of these older bodies that work great and get them while they're still out there, because once they're gone, they're gone. And even within the era of photography, I'm going to tell you why this is a sweet spot. A lot of people later on who may be, born in the last 10 years are just going to know mirrorless. They're not going to know this stuff. But if you're like at least 20 years old right now or older, you would, because if you're 20 years old, maybe when you were 10, you would have seen these kind of cameras around. These would be vintage cameras similar to when I was growing up. My parents had SLRs. My mom was actually into photography and had a Canon SLR film. So the interchangeable lens, the whole nice body setup like this, obviously an older design. But my point that I'm getting at is, I think this was the sweet spot for photographers for that old school feel, but moving to digital, where you didn't have to pay for film. You didn't have to pay for, obviously a memory card replaced having film. A memory card replaced film. And as far as the dark room or the red room, the dark room, I am having a brain fart what it's called, because it looks red, but they call it dark room, where people would have their photos developed. Obviously now you just buy a printer. If you want to develop your own photos, you buy a really nice printer, or similar to when you would send your film in to a place to get the photos done, you could send them in to get the photos done. Key little side note, if you guys have a Costco membership, Costco now outsourced their photography. I actually joined Costco years back for their prints. They used to do very large prints for cheap. They still do them relatively cheap, 20 by 30 prints, relatively cheap, not as cheap as they were before. They used to be $9.99. I think they might be maybe $13 or $14 for an individual photo now of that size. Nonetheless, poster size, still great value. They now outsource to Shutterfly. So if you have a Costco membership, you can link it up with Shutterfly and you get like 40% off all their products to give you that deal that Costco used to give their members when they did it in-house. But anyway, so this is that, like I said, that time frame where you still get the feel of a old school camera with the ease of digital. I don't think we'll ever have a space like this ever again. So if you're gonna get into photography, I definitely recommend getting picking up a couple of used lenses along the way over time. Get yourself like the 50mm to start. If you're buying this, I would say get the 50mm to start. If you're buying a 40D, a crop sensor, you can get a 50mm, but the problem is the focal length is not going to be as usable, but make it work. Use your feet to zoom in and zoom out. And then later on, we can get a wider lens. A wider lens will be better. There's a lot of affordable used lenses on the market for Canon. I'm only speaking on Canon right now. You could go into Nikon, but I'm not too familiar with them as much. A little bit more with the camera bodies, but less with the lenses. They get a little complicated, so I'm not going to speak on that. But what I'm saying can apply to all of the older digital SLR brands, Nikon, Pentax, all of them. But really, if you're trying to get into the hobby, this is that space, and it's good to jump on it now, because when all these things are gone, and this is part of the reason why I bought this one. I bought this one for my kids, but if they don't end up using it, I'm going to keep it as a great body, and I love it. This right here is just great. I wanted to have a backup to my 6D Mark II, and it's just a great camera in general. It's just amazing, and a great value. If it was up to me right now, maybe I'll do this a little later on when I get into a better financial space. I might buy a lot more used older body digital SLRs, especially if I can get them for a good price. But this is that era now to scoop up what you can now, because this is going to be gone. And when this is gone, for those who like this, it's going to be like the equivalent of owning an old vintage car that was like really nice when it came out, and people are like, oh yeah, that was way back, and you're gonna remember those days like that was an amazing car. Maybe even with a manual, where it's like this is like the equivalent of driving a manual, where mirrorless is like an automatic. It's just a different feel, and this is the time to get into it. It really is, and I definitely recommend it for you guys who want to get to that hobby of photography. And it's a good pastime. Jump into any hobby that you want to, but like I always say on this channel, get into a hobby. If you don't have one, this is really a really good hobby to get into, because you can go on a nice warm day, go to a park, take photos of nature, just walk around your city, take pictures of buildings, whatever you want to get into, but it gets you outside, it gets you active, which is nice. I used to sometimes go to my local museum to take photos when I want to test out a new lens or something like that, when I was heavy into the hobby, and it's just really nice. In that regard, getting you out there, getting into that space, and it doesn't really cost anything, because once you buy this, you buy a lens, you have an SD card, which obviously a cheap SD card costs nothing. This takes CF cards, but you can get a adapter. I've showed that. Did I show that before? I didn't. Let me go grab that. So this right here is a SD to CF card adapter. Or you could say vice versa, CF to SD adapter. There's an SD card inside there, and it goes into the adapter. And let me open this up really quick. What's awesome is you could just reuse this plastic as a little kind of container. And I pull this out here. That's how you see that. This is an older card. But it's great for these cameras, because you know, they don't really take a lot of data, so it actually works good for this. And you can use this instead of a CF card, like I just mentioned before, but because SD cards are cheaper and they're easier to have and afford, easier to find. But this is what the CF card naturally looks like. And you can buy these, but the truth is they're not as cheap now as they used to be, because now they're nothing uses them anymore. So I would definitely recommend getting an adapter. But like I said before, this is that era where you guys jumping into this is, like I said, affordable, because you have it. Once you have your memory card, you've got your camera, you've got your one lens, you can literally just keep shooting forever. At that point, the hobby never costs any more money if you don't need it to. Shoot, get familiar with the camera, learn the whole trinity of exposure, which is your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture. And at that stage, you're able to just enjoy it. Take photos of family. Your photos are gonna come out amazing, way better than your phone photos, and it's gonna feel like an actual experience holding that in your hand, getting used to the skills of it. You're gonna really love it. Obviously, if you end up getting into photography, you're going to love it because you're going to love the experience that you get from this, as opposed to something that's a little more just, like I said, the mirrorless experiences are okay, but they're expensive right now, and this gets you into the hobby easy. So once again, just to really recap, I really recommend you guys. I think that of all the cameras someone could get on the used market right now, digital SLRs, at least from Canon side, I think this is the best camera you can get, for the best value and the best camera you can get. There are ones that came out later than it, but image quality wise, this is giving you just as good as the ones that came out later than it for the most part. The ISO doesn't go up as high, but it goes up high enough for what you need it. But I think it's the best balance between cost and value, because like say the Mark III or the Mark IV, the Mark III I think will go for like 300, like maybe like about $500 I think used, and the Mark IV might go for $1,000 used. This is going for $200 used, full frame, great specs. Also too, you're not overwhelmed with too many advanced features that most photographers don't need to use. I like that. So to me, this is just a very natural experience, old school experience, while having some modern features like a higher resolution screen. The resolution screen on this is actually higher than this one. As far as you looking at your photos, you know, the mechanics inside of the menu system is a menu system that is easy to read, and very intuitive. It's very simple, but they don't bog you down with too many things in the menus by this generation. The later generations, there's so many extra stuff in the menus that it can get a little overwhelming. And even though you don't have to use all those things, it's still, to me, nice knowing that they aren't even there on some of these cameras. That's how I feel. I prefer having it simple. So to me, this is the best camera you can buy, the 5D Mark II for Canon, if you're gonna go inside the direction. Like I said, I've seen them online roughly about $200 to $200 and like maybe $50 is the price range. But just look at the pictures, see that there's no scuffs on it, and that read the details on it. You can get yourself a really good one. And with that, to me, it's just the best camera you could buy right now. And I think it's going to be the best camera you could buy for probably at least a good like a year, 2 years. What's going to happen over time is those other cameras are going to start coming down in price. And as they do, I may even try to scoop those up. And if you're into that space, you can too, where the 5D Mark, I probably would skip the 5D Mark III, me personally. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I think it'd be a great camera, but I would probably say, being that I got the 5D Mark II, which I love, and I have a 6D Mark II, which is a lot later of a camera, I would probably wait till like say the 5D Mark IV for me, maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, gets down to this same price, $200, and I might buy it, even though I don't think it's any necessarily better than this for what I do, because I don't really do any kind of sports stuff or anything like that, and my 6D Mark II can handle that stuff. But just for to have it extra in the collection, because like I said, these things are going extinct, and if you have them and you have them in mid condition and keep them in good condition, you have it for the rest of your life, and you keep your lenses good and clean and everything like that. Don't let dust to get in them. Don't leave the lens cap off of the body when you're just, having it sitting there. Some people do that and they don't care. I don't recommend that. It's a little thing for you to put the lens cap back on the camera, the camera cap for the sensor, and then the lens cap for the lens. Putting these things on, keeping your things in good condition takes no effort, yet it goes a long way to live for your cameras lasting a very long time. The 5D Mark I, surprisingly, everyone rants and raves about it having this really great sensor that looks very old school. It looks almost filmic. It has a lot of quirks about it that some people run into that are not as pleasing to use, even though the images, people like it. I personally recommend this one better, even though that's a distinct style. So if you're familiar with cameras, you can go to that. But if you're not, if you're new to cameras, I would recommend this one because they go for the same price, funny enough. But like I said, and I'm sorry for rambling, ranting on, this space is going to go extinct soon, so I think it's worth jumping on. I'm not going to keep rambling anymore, you guys. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.